Good morning. So I'm just coming out of a beautiful meditation, and a old story came up, a beautiful story I wanted to share. Many years ago, when I used to trek and guide treks in the Himalayas in Nepal, in between leading groups, I would often go and disappear up into the Himalayas on my own. And one particular trek, I spent about 6 weeks out in very remote parts of Nepal, where there were no tourists, there were no other trekkers. So 6 weeks just on my own, never seeing another foreigner, and spent a lot of my time, moving through villages. I was actually going up to find a hidden monastery up along the Tibetan border. And so my meals would typically be taken in the evenings, when I'd arrive and set up my tent outside of a village and find a kind villager that I could pay to feed me for the evening. So for about 6 weeks, as I got higher and higher into the Himalayas, and it was winter, the only food available is dalbat, which is rice and lentils. And if you were lucky, maybe some potatoes, and if you were really lucky, every once in a while, some mustard greens. And when I was finishing up that trek, I was coming back down out of the high altitudes down to the lower and warmer elevations. I remember getting to a village, and it was warmer. I hadn't been warm for a long time. And it was warmer, and the sun was out, and there were tangerines. And I remember getting a tangerine from somewhere in the village, and breaking the skin, and that spritz of tangerine mist hit my nose. And there was a moment like I hadn't had fresh food for 6 weeks. And that moment of getting that waft of such deliciousness and purity and straight from the earth I'll never forget it. And then tasting that first bite of the tangerine, and in that moment, having this feeling and thought that was, I will never have another piece of false citrus in my life, a hard candy that has a citrus flavor, an orange flavored soda, something of that nature. I was ruined. In that moment, I was ruined. I could never go back. That moment of that recognition of what a beautiful, pure love this taste was. It's just so hard to describe. But I bring that up because it's reminiscent, or it's reflective of the experience I'm having now, where there is a purity of consciousness now that has awoken and is forward, is what is meeting life. The manufactured chest, the manufactured story of self, has so dropped away now that life comes in and it just meets consciousness. Consciousness is now there, awakened, present to meet life, rather than life coming in and meeting my programming and conditioning and stories and reactions. The thing that so much of us were trying to be free of. I don't want to be ruled by this mind and this story, my programming, my conditioning. When that's truly dissolved and falls away, consciousness, pure consciousness can flower. And it is what is present, so that when life comes in, it just meets loving consciousness. And that purity, that beauty is much like that tangerine, that when that's present, you never want to go back. You never want to go back to the manufactured self, the false self, the approximated self. It's like a hard candy made of citrus flavor that's approximating a tangerine or an orange, but is never going to get there. It's never going to be the real thing. So the invitation here is to just stay with the practice of dissolving, letting go of the program conditioned false self that we've constructed out of our own minds. And we didn't really have a choice. That's a whole other part of this. But when that is let go, the ego says, but what will be there? But what will be there if that's not the me that meets the world? My thoughts, my opinions, my judgments, my assessments. If that's not how I'm navigating the world, what would navigate the world? And consciousness will. And the question arises, but what will that be like? And the truth is, it can't be explained. Until we arrive at this empty space where consciousness can then blossom and come forward and be redolent, to be present. Until that happens, you can't know what that experience would be like. So the question, but what will that be like? We can use words: peace, equanimity, grace, stability, kindness, compassion, love. But even that they're only just words that point to a truth. It would be like trying to explain to somebody the taste of a tangerine that had never actually tasted a tangerine. You could use the word sweet, you could use the word tart, you could use the word refreshing, liquid sunshine. I mean, you could use all these best ways you could to approximate it, but if one has never actually tasted a tangerine, they don't know. You can't until that day that you actually taste it and go, oh my God. Like what you were describing was tantalizing. It was inspiring. I wanted to taste a tangerine because of the way you've been describing it. But until I actually tasted it, I couldn't know. And that's what this experience is, of experiencing the world with the filter, the false self fallen away, and experiencing it through the purity of consciousness. So it's like saying, to know the truth of you, the absolute consciousness of you, you have to stop chewing on the false you. You have to stop sucking on that false hard candy that's approximating you, that's giving you a flavor. You're trying to find the best flavor you can. We're working on creating the best self we can create. But when we stop manufacturing the self, approximating the truth of being through better thoughts, then we're still going to be thoughts. It's still going to be ideas of self, constructs of self. We're constructing a better version of ourselves in our mind, trying to get rid of the disempowering thoughts and have only loving thoughts, or only kind thoughts, or only self-accepting thoughts. That's a much lovelier candy, but it's still not the truth. Only when we stop sucking on that candy, that hard candy that's approximating self, and allow ourselves to taste the pure freshness of being, we can't know what that really is. So we have to spit out the hard candy and let there be an emptiness for a while, and let another flavor of self arise and blossom and bloom and present itself. And only in tasting that might we go, oh my God, I had no idea. I didn't know what this actually was. And even then, like this taste of consciousness that I'm experiencing now, that will change. That will shift. And I can't know what the next taste will be. So I'm just going to keep emptying and allowing pure consciousness just to be present, and let that reveal itself and mature in my knowing, and see what happens. Keep letting go. Keep surrendering. Keep emptying. recognizing that when you let go of the fiction of self, there will be something there. There will be something there. Pure consciousness. What's that like? I can't tell you. Nobody can. Come find out.